Hello, fellow traders. 'Tis I, TheRumpledOne, coming to you on Thursday, November the 30th, last day of the month. The year is 2023. Let's talk trading. Methods do not work. These videos are for educational purposes only. Your results may differ from mine and differ from Walmal. Before we were making this video, Walmal and I were having a conversation, and about methods. And the one thing about methods, you can look all over YouTube in the trading world and you can find all these traders with all these different methods, and you can put me in that bunch because I've got my dozen or so methods. But the thing is, the methods don't work. And what I mean by that is, and we've talked about this before, it's up to the trader to work the methods, but the methods in themselves don't work, because if they did, the market would cease to exist. And as when Walmal and I were talking, he was saying there's too many variables. You want to explain that part, Walmal?
Sure. I'm going to make one other comment before that, but you had suggested that topic, and it's like, man, that's a good topic for a bait click topic. Draw some people in. Just like, methods don't work in Forex. Oh crap, what's going on here? Somebody who says you can make money in Forex is all of a sudden saying you can't make money. Nope, that's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that a method is nothing more. At least this is what I'm saying. A method is just a means. It basically it satisfies one thing. And that one thing is how to get into a trade, and maybe if your method is developed well enough how to get out of a trade. By the way, traders, it better go and find that as well. Otherwise, what's the point? But because otherwise you could be up 150 pips for the day, and but it's all paper money, and you didn't have a way to get out, and you never realized that. Next thing the market went against you, and now you've lost 150 pips for the day. So your method better go and cover both ends. And I say all that because I think that it leads into something that that really is out there, that we as traders sometimes, I think we all know it. Okay, down in the deep roots of our heart, we all know it, but we're afraid to say it, afraid to acknowledge it. And that is that, in terms of trading, and this could be true for really any business, but trading, because that's what we're talking about here, the problem is there's just too many variables that are out there. What I mean by that is I can control when I'm going to enter. I can control when I'm going to exit. I can control, what my lot size is going to be. Okay, I'm done. That's all I can control. I can't control anything else. There's all these other variables, and the thing is, I can go, maybe what I can do is I can go out there and look and get some idea about what the market's done previously in areas like this. In other words, if the market is, we'll go and use the idea of a flip-flop box. Get a flip-flop box, you know what? There's a high percentage of times that you get a flip-flop box and you go in and you can go and make some money off of that. But guess what? There's also a high number of times when you can lose money off of that, especially if you don't go and manage your money correctly. And that's really what we're getting to, or at least what I'm getting to, is the fact that there's all these other variables that I can't control. I can control my emotions to a certain extent, but I can't completely control it. Sort of like, if people say, what would you do if some strong armed robber came into your home? Would you go and use some type of weapon, to go and defend your spouse and your family? Or would you not? Here's a reality. Until that day comes, you don't know what you're really, truly going to go and do. It comes down to what actually happens in the moment, because you can't control that part of you, that emotion. You can have a plan, you can have all the things in place, but that doesn't mean that's what you're actually going to go and do. And you can't control that emotion. You may freeze up. You may all of a sudden be the biggest nerd geek that's ever walked on the face of the planet, and all of a sudden turned from Clark Kent into Superman. Again, you don't know. It's a variable outside of your control. Well, trading's like that. When you're in the heat of the moment, okay, I don't care how good you think you are, okay, when there's real money on the line, there's emotion that comes into play. So unless you're the type of trader that places a trade, puts a stop loss on it, and puts a TP on it, and then literally turns off your computer and comes back tomorrow to find out what he did. And there are traders who do that, make a lot of money doing that. I see a lot of merit doing that, actually. But unless you're that type of a trader, who knows what's actually going to go and happen? You really don't know, because you don't know what you're going to do. That's a variable that's out there, okay? Another variable. What happens if all of a sudden you go into the trade, there's no news posted, everything looks free and clear, your method says to go in here, everything looks hunky-dory, you're up a pip, 2 pips, 3 pips, it's going in your direction, you're getting ready to go and maybe take some profit off the table, because you decided in your plan that, hey, I'm going to go and wait for it to hit 4 pips and take half my trade off, let the other half ride, whatever your method may be. And all of a sudden, before you can even get half the profit off the table, some political bozo someplace goes and says something that rattles the entire world. And all of a sudden, you were long, and the instrument you were in just craters. Absolutely craters. Could you have controlled that? Nope. Variable out of your control. And the problem is that there are variables that we are not even aware of. There are things going on that we're not even aware of. So, that's the problem. So what can you do about that? There's got to be a solution, right? I mean, otherwise you can't be a profitable trader unless you're the luckiest guy that's ever walked on the face of the earth. And there's a science, it's a mathematical science called applied math. If you want to get technical on it, called operations research. In operations research, the idea is, okay, I've got, 5 known variables and 3 unknown variables. And what you do is you say, I don't know what those 3 unknown variables are because they're unknown. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to assign an amount of risk to it and put buffers around my area. So basically, I've said this a lot of times on videos here, and that is putting up guide rails. I'm going to say, I'm going to go and allow the market to do this because I can't account for these 3 things that potentially could happen. Well, that 3 times 10 things that could happen. And so what you do is you just go and do that. You go and say, okay, the reality is the market could go and do this. And so what do? You go into my favorite topic of all time, preserve capital at all times, and you go into money management. And that's what you have to do. You just have to go and say, I'm going to preserve my money. I'm going to preserve my capital. And by preserving my capital, I'm going to go and manage my money. And so what does that mean? Does that mean that you go and take all your money and stick it under a rock and never invest it? No, because then you never make any money. So what do? You go out there and you say, I'm willing to go and risk this amount of money and only this amount of money. And by risking only this amount of money, what's going to happen is I potentially can make, a certain amount of money. I may not, but at the same time, I'm not going to lose more than this. And by doing that, what you can do is, if you've got a method that's halfway decent, and you're really good at executing, meaning you go and actually follow the rules that you put in place, you should be, at the end of the day, be able to go make money. Now, it may not be at the end of the day. You may have losing days, because that's normal. But at the same time, at the end of the week or at the end of the month or at the end of the year, you should have more money in your bank account than you did at the beginning. And that's what I mean by, going and saying, your methods don't work. Because the thing is, the method, it's important, but it's only one of lots and lots of variables. And until we recognize all those other variables that are out there and either mitigate against them or go and take advantage of them, we're going to be on the losing side of trades. So that's what I say.
Yeah. I think part of the problem is what I had mentioned too, is that when I say methods don't work, is that when you're looking for a method, you're looking outside yourself for the solution, when the solution resides within. And we've talked about the turtle traders before, and how, they were all taught at the same time by the same teacher, but the results, were up to the individuals that were participating. And so, and then they try to determine, why were some successful and why did some fail. But it's much easier to get somebody to spend money on, getting something outside themselves, as opposed to spending money on fixing something inside yourself.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Nobody wants to go and, put the emphasis back on themselves and put the light on themselves, I guess is a better way of saying it, and recognize that, hey, the problem is not the method, the problem is not the market, the problem may be just me, because I don't go and execute things the way I'm supposed to execute things, or, and that really covers everything, because I get too nervous, I go and jump out too quick, or I'm not willing to take a loss, so I stay in too long, all those things that we've all done, and I think when you become successful is when you recognize that, hey, I have a potential for doing this. And again, I'll go back up to my guardrails, illustration again. And until we go and not only put the guardrails up, but we obey the guardrails. We can easily jump over the guardrails. And what's the point of having a guardrail in the first place? You're just going to go and jump over it. So we got to put the guardrails up, recognize where to put them, and then on top of that, then we got to go and actually go and obey them.
Yeah, I mean, because I've got, the year trading screen up, as we've been talking, and you can see the last half hour was a red candle. We came down to that 25 line. Candle color at the line, if you went short at 25, you had a potential of making over 15 pips. And then candle color came right back to the price came right back to 25, but the candle color, it just barely changed. And if you had taken the first time it touched, you would have experienced about 5 pips of drawdown. But now, if you had ridden it out or maybe taken that second trade, you'd be up, 6-7 pips right now, with the potential of, you actually hit 35. So there was a potential to take 10 pips off the table. It's something that simple. But, it's like, first you have to get in the trade. 2, you have to, have your stop loss in the right place. Maybe not be so fidgety, but even if you had a 5 pip stop and you got stopped out, if you would have taken that second trade, you would have made it back, and like I said, and then some.
Yeah, I mean, a perfect example of this, and talking about another thing, it's just out of your control. I was in a trade earlier today where I got into the trade that was long, and the broker took me out. And I was happy because he took me out, and it turned around and went straight down. It technically they claimed that it hit my TP. I look at my chart, price never got to my TP. Why did they take me out? I'm saying, I'm scratching your head, so why? Well, there happened to be an order that was out there that was sitting on their books that they needed to fill, so they filled the order. That's what they did. They just filled my order. I probably had the perfect size and the, perfect price, and they filled my order. Meanwhile, I look at my chart, and the price never got there. That's a variable completely out of my control. I couldn't have planned that. I couldn't do anything about that. But that's the way it is sometimes. And, again, variables out of your control. What do? Put up guardrails, protect yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And you know what, fellow traders? Fastest 15 minutes in trading's just about over. So, we'll probably revisit this, but, if you're really struggling, or if you really want to, take your trade to the next level, you just have to, look at the trader in the mirror and work on it, because a different method's not going to, in most cases, isn't going to solve any issues or make you a better trader. Because you have to remember, it's not what you trade, it's how you trade it. So go out there and drain the banks. This is the Rumpled One, over and out.